I think we are live. Okay, hello everyone. It's 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for everyone who's joining this panel. We just give a minute or two for people to come in from the other session, and then we'll get started. Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this panel on managing the evolving customer in a technology and data-driven world. My name is Saurabh Mishra, and I'm a professor of marketing here at the Costello College of Business. I will be acting as the moderator for this panel. Before we dive into the discussion, I wanted to briefly introduce our excellent group of panelists. All of them are leaders in understanding managing customers in the retail space and have multiple years of experience, and we are thrilled that they have joined us despite their busy schedules. So today we have with us Dr. Bulent Dal. Bulent is the CEO and co-founder at Obase. He leads a dynamic team in revolutionizing retail through cutting-edge data solutions, enhancing supply chain productivity, and fostering customer loyalty. He has over 25 years of experience in this space and is a strong supporter of our Center for Retail Transformation. Welcome, Bulent, and thanks. Also joining us is Mr. Nishat Mehta. Nishat is currently the Chief Operating Officer and President of Lexitas, a leader in tech-enabled legal services. Most relevant to today's discussion, Nishat was previously President of Global Products and Solutions for Circana, a company formed from the merger of IRI and the NPD Group. In that role, he led an integrated global team with responsibility for all Circana's products and several of Circana's commercial divisions. Before joining IRI, Mehta led the customer communications team at 84.51 Degrees and held a leadership role at dunnhumby, where he helped leading grocery retailers, including the Kroger Company and Tesco, along with their CPG brand partners, to create relevant and personalized communications to strengthen customer loyalty. Welcome, Nishat.
Thank you.
Finally, our third panelist is Mr. Vivek Puri. Vivek is the Managing Director, Global Head of Product Consulting and CX Transformation Practice at Brilio. He's a digital transformation business leader with diverse global experience in developing breakthrough strategies, leading DTM solutions for revenue growth, delivering cutting-edge transformation solutions, and building high-performing teams for customer-centric digital economy. He has worked both in developing and emerging markets. Vivek has more than 25 years of global consulting and IT services experience, spanning practice and growth leadership, solutioning, service line portfolio delivery, COE, and innovation charters. He also has vast experience in digital business and CX transformations in retail, CPG, telco, B2B, ISVs, tech and life sciences verticals, and has partnered with many industry-leading brands globally. He's in India currently and joining us despite it being very late in the evening there. Thanks for doing so and welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, a big welcome to all attendees. The way we'll structure this panel is that I'll post a question or two to each panelist. After the panelists have shared their view, other panelists will chime in with their perspectives on the topic. For the attendees, as we have any questions, please post them in the chat and I'll relay them to the panelists. To keep it manageable, we will not be able to relay questions through audio. So let's get right into it. So, Bulent, if I can start with you, we all recognize the fast pace of change that is happening around us, much of it driven by rapid advancements in technology. Against this backdrop, from your vantage point, how is today's customer different and how do you foresee the typical retail customer evolving with the digital transformation taking place in the industry?
Yes, yes. Okay. Again, thanks for having us here. So, first of all, during this, as you touched, the digital transformation, customers are evolving, very fast, and this evolution is completely reshaping how retailers connect with customers. And if you look at today's shopping environment journey, there are no boundaries or store times anymore. We don't know where a shopping journey starts and where it ends. It may start in a digital screen, continues in the store, ends in your home, and it goes with a return center or vice versa. So this is affecting all the things. And of course, pandemic affected a lot our behavior, consumer behavior, and there was a significant shift to online. But if we look at adult shoppers, more than 81% of them still prefers physical stores. And if you look at especially grocery retail, more than 85% of revenue still generated in the physical store. So physical is important, and customers want to have the best of all platforms. And if you look at top three expectations here: seamless experience, convenience, and personalization. And this is we can summarize customer experience. Those are the top three things. And if you look at how it affects retailers and companies like us contributing to the industry, it creates a unified commerce concept. We were talking about omni-channel, but now there's a shift. There's to the unified, which means that integrating both physical and digital touch points to deliver a seamless shopping experience. So if you go into the detail, we see that the customers expect a smooth transition between digital platforms and physical stores. This is especially important if we keep customers' data in their latest experience and history. They wanna leverage that experience regardless of the channel they choose to engage with in the future. For instance, let's think about Apple stores and their new product, New Vision Pro, and you can test drive in a store, and there may be some measurements, for custom fittings, and you may not purchase that product in the store, but after that you may change your mind, and everything by scanning a QR code and related your fittings, custom fittings with that, then you can buy it later by losing no time. So this is for instance a basic experience. And of course, frictionless shopping. This is another, rising, thing. So finding a product online and convenience of mobile payments, speed of checkout, or simplicity of returns on exchanges, they are all affecting frictionless shopping. And of course, we need to be careful about these expectations. And as I touched, customers experience and they expect the best of online and in-store offerings. And with that, personalization, of course, is important, and real-time assistance and immersive experiences define the new shopping journey. So we need to put something, for these processes. And we see that, there are some rising IT, information technology concepts helping this. For instance, clienteling and video consultation is important. Using GenAI is important, but I think first of all, we need to empower the store associates. So that's why this is important. And having the consistent product information is also important at this point. And of course, inventory visibility to serve, in the perfect way. And the rising importance of advertisements and in-store retail media in the physical stores and frictionless checkout all help this customer experience make it in a better way. And of course, we need to take care about changing demographics and behaviors of the digitized customers, and especially new generations. So this, new generation, they are used to getting things quickly, having many options, using interactive, user responsive interfaces, and making choices based on what others says. They need to follow up influencers, and it is very important to know and meet these needs to attract these tech-savvy customers. And the last, and the thing that I need to raise here is the data privacy concerns. We need to also take care about that, because they are, if we, they are there is a high, growing concern. But if we, satisfy their privacy concerns, we increase our loyalty and trust with the customers. So we need to be transparent, and we need to also give control to the audience, consumers, for managing their personal informations. And retailers must prioritize their data security and to maintain trust and loyalty. So basically, our challenge here is to provide an endless engagement where customers expect smooth transitions between digital platforms and physical spaces without being constrained by store timings or geographical boundaries. So, and of course, always, if you look at the future, the only unchanged thing would be the customer experience. So it will be the heart of the operation. And yeah, that's what I can say at this round.
I might
That's a
just
good summary. Go ahead,
I
Nishant.
might just add one thing. So I'm not going to do as good of a job as Bulent did in terms of all the various changes that are happening and the ways in which to incorporate all of this material. One of the things for me that I think is really important is to think about kind of the North Star and what hasn't changed. And oftentimes that helps walk us off the edge or the cliff of feeling like we're overwhelmed. And I think what's important to recognize is roughly, 80 years ago, in the 40s, 50s of the last century, retail was very much not a self-service paradigm. You walked into a store, you walked up to a counter, behind the counter was the shop owner. The shop owner would either know you well enough to know what you were looking for, or you would tell them, I need 6 of those, 2 of those, 3 of those. And they would go back to the shelves behind them, bring all the stuff to the counter, and they might throw in 1 or 2 other things that they think you might like that came in new last week or a month ago, based on what they know of you. And you start to get into the 50s and 60s where we start to move to a self-service model. And the self-service model became a necessity just simply in order for a retailer to actually scale. It wasn't feasible to have a shop owner have to do all of the picking for you. But what that really did was it worsened the customer experience, because now the customer actually has to figure out what they want rather than somebody actually telling them or remembering what they wanted the last time and getting it for them. And then the opportunity for discovery went away, or certainly significantly diminished, where before the shop owner would potentially recommend something to you that you might not have previously tried. Now, all of a sudden, you have to be the one to walk down aisle 4 and magically come upon some item or category that you hadn't previously shopped. And the chances of that happening were pretty low. And so the way that I think about technology in particular, and the impact of technology and digital, and the lack of boundaries between brick and mortar and e-commerce, is really our attempt to try to return back to the experience of 100 years ago, but to be able to do so at massive scale, right? It's no longer a corner shop with 2,000 square feet and maybe 1,000 UPCs. It's now Walmart doing it across 120,000 square feet and a delivery mechanism and 100,000 UPCs, et cetera. So to me, the North Star is the customer still wants the ability to work with a retailer who knows what they want and can bring those things to them. They are looking for unique discovery opportunities, but only when those discoveries are actually relevant to them. And beyond all that, everything else is just the nature of progress in a society. But what doesn't change is that experience.
Yeah, I can basically add to that, and I think a lot of it is all the right points from Bulent and Nishant, right? I think from my perspective, just a couple of points to add. I think one is customers today expect retailers to meet them where they are, right? So that's an important part, because a lot of cases we still see that there's a very prominent use of social channels, but for a lot of our clients like we work with, we still see a lot of traffic on the social channels, but that doesn't translate to purchases really. So I think it's a lot about, are you meeting them where they are? That's an important part. So whether it's stores, whether it is online, whether it's social, whether it is, part of the journeys. And the other part I would say is that, some of the value systems of the next gen buyers have changed, especially the new age, where they're looking a lot like they've gone beyond just the brand kind of aspect, and how they perceive the brand is very different based on aspects like sustainability. How does it, like, is it a sustainable brand? It's an ethical brand. Many of the other considerations which are buying, like, reasons for people to purchase from different brands, which have like probably not existed as much in the older or in the previous generations. So I would see some of those nuances of understanding what they're looking for, I think, is absolutely paramount, in addition to obviously all the good points that were talked about in terms of the omnichannel and the personalization and the stores and everything. And I think some of these are areas where, like, even for example, loyalty, the whole definition of loyalty has really evolved over the last few. Like earlier, like earlier times we used to look at loyalty points and rewards, but now loyalty is kind of ingrained in every part of the journey, which actually creates the loyalty for the brand, which is kind of very different from what it was earlier. So some of those points I thought also important from this perspective.
No, those are really good points, and it's a very, really challenging, but at the same time, very exciting space to be in, right? The changing customers, and I think balancing different generations of customers, because at the same time with the technology, what's happened is that, as some of you touch upon, right, there's the young customer, but then we also have a sizable chunk of, especially in North America, the older customers, and how do you balance that? And I think that dovetails with the next question I had was, like, how can retailers manage these complicated customer relationships too? And as Vivek said, loyalty has changed, right? So how do they build trust and loyalty, especially with the tools that are available now, like AI, omnichannel marketing, and other capabilities? So
I can start there. We spent a lot of time in this space and trying to figure out how loyalty is developed. And I'll start with one anecdote, which I think it tells a really useful story, which is, so I worked for a grocery retailer, and coupons are a fairly significant part of that business. And so we tested two different things. One was a website where you visit the website, we send you the link, and we've got 200 coupons on that website. And you could select the ones that you wanted. You could download them to your loyalty card. And then when you check out the next time, you present your loyalty card and we take the coupons off your bill. The other option was that we would email you 12 coupons. They were based on our knowledge of you personally. They were 12 coupons, oftentimes related to the kinds of things that we know you buy. And then we would survey folks, the two different categories. And what we found was really interesting is in the first category, people that were sent a simple link to a library of coupons, was they took credit for the money that they were saving. That they had to do the work to curate from the 200 coupons, the 12 or 15 or 20 that were most relevant to them. They saved $20 and they saved $20. In the second example, we saved them $20 because we curated the coupons and sent it to them. And you can begin to imagine where loyalty comes from, right? That clearly the second bucket was far more loyal to our brand than the first bucket. The general perception is, well, the first bucket of people, I get that link from 20 different retailers. Who cares which retailer I go to? I'm sure I could find a list of 200 coupons. Whereas in the second link, the more I shop with you, the more you know me, the more you know me, the more you will send me coupons relevant to me. It makes me want to shop with you more often. And so we made it a point to deliver coupons to people for products that they would already buy. And some might argue, why in the world would you do that? You're just giving away free margin. They were already going to spend the money at buy the product at full price. Why give them 50 cents off or $1 off? And what we would consistently find is that the long-term value far exceeded whatever short-term margin we were giving up. If you were a loyal Coke household and I gave you a coupon on Coke, a year later, inevitably, you were spending more on Coke, which meant I was capturing headroom. I wasn't getting your full spend on carbonated soft drinks. I was getting much of it, but not all of it if I'm Coke. But by sending you that coupon, I'm now getting even more of your share of requirement in your household. So to me, I think loyalty has to be thought of without purely looking at it from a financial perspective, but oftentimes looking at it from how do you actually deliver an experience to the customer that is truly a surprise and a sort of a delightful experience. That is what ultimately causes them to think of you different than your peer set in terms of the retailer.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like as you said, like loyalty, it pays off over time, right? It's something. It's like, do you want to be you just want to mine one area and then go and get new customers, or do you want to? It's much more economical and much more profitable to hold on to the customers that are already yours. And if it means a little bit of incentive today for much higher stream of revenues in the future, it makes perfect sense, right? Vivek, do you have any thoughts on-
We would define loyalty as simply the net present value of all future revenue you get from the customer. And when you think of it that way, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just one more thought here is that for many, as you look at this whole concept of loyalty being ingrained in frictionless experiences, which actually creates that loyalty over a period of time, obviously apart from monetary gains, right? I think a key question that we at least get a number of times is, what does good look like for customer experience, right? Because often, all retailers think about what is the value the customer generates for them, vis-a-vis, what is the value that the retailer generates for the customers, right? So there are no metrics for that. So, one thing which we've been spending a lot of time is to try and define like composite metrics of what is that North Star, right? So we came up with a concept of what's a perfect journey score? What is the perfect journey for a customer? And can you break it and can you construct a composite metric around it, which the organization can align? And it's easier said than done, but it's very difficult because organizations are highly departmentalized, into various functions, right? So not everybody thinks about the same outcome, which actually creates the customer experience. So we've been working on some of these composite metrics, trying to get that for organizations because at the core of it is, can you offer the perfect journey and can you measure the value the retailer is creating for the customer versus the other way around always? Because all the metrics like lifetime value, average order value, conversion, all are the other way around. So we've been trying to, have that discussion and a lot of activity happening in that space of trying to define the right metrics and then figuring out how to align the organization towards those composite metrics.
Yeah. Yes, I may add a couple of things here already covered very well, but actually understanding customers and having a customer 360, having all the raw data, information, insights, predictions under the hands of the marketers is important to run these operations, and also making these in a unified commerce discipline is important. So this is standing companies to change their technology platforms. So we need to have a platform to execute it. But of course, if you look at, even though the buying power of, consumers, high inflation, if you look at the statistics, more than 86% of consumers say that they would pay higher for a better customer experience. And with that, as Nishad touched the media, top part and his experience, especially in that area. So we need to also digitize the store area to measure the things within the store. And I think, this is a significant requirement for keeping the momentum, monitoring the momentum of the customers, digitizations of the stores, and in-store analytics to support this process.
Yeah, those are really good points. And especially, as we were talking about, because the customer journey is both online and offline, right? It's kind of become seamless. It's, and so from your experiences, right, it's how can retailers manage this? How can they get a view of this complete journey, right? Because a lot of these, they might have a lot of, mechanisms to capture it within their stores, and they might be having some capacity over outside of the stores. where do you see some of this convergence happening, and how can retailers possibly build on these to, you know, come up with some of the metrics like you guys have been pointing out, right, which are changing. I think the metrics that we have traditionally relied on are also evolving as technology and analytics are evolving.
No. Okay. You want me to take that? Can I?
Sure, go
Can I
ahead.
chime in?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Vivek.
So just I think on this one, I think as Biren put it right, the true 360 is a challenge for a lot of retailers to really achieve, right? And it takes a lot of effort because data is extremely siloed to truly figure out what does that 360 look like across channels. That's one part. And I think the other part is that a lot of the efforts in the because traditionally, you know, retailers like there are different types of retailers, right? So the people like the folks who are more digitally native because that's where they were set up digitally native. There are a lot of retailers who were you know, the traditional ones where the business was not set up to have digital at the core, but now they have to modernize, you know, a lot of things from their legacy to all the store system, including, you know, point of sale and some of the more complex systems, and then have them joined up with their, you know, like, or driven from your CDP. So I think the other thing, like, I think there are two parts to it. One part I feel is just having that true 360, which itself is quite daunting for a lot of, you know, retailers to do that. In many cases, even for the CPG players, it's another problem because they have to get data from retailers and then figure out, you know, how the brand is like performing, and that is an additional like step of complexity which could be done through many different, you know, techniques. And the other part is then how do you activate that insight through different channels, which is you know, like, can be as simply as saying, you know, there are you know, your point of sale has like, you've got APIs where you've got, you know, your point of sale being like being able to recognize customers as they're doing their transactions based on the 360 that you have, and then personalizing in real time, or, you know, hyper personalizations. Same ways, you know, journeys which are started can be continued into stores through different, you know, mechanisms of you know, taking appointment in stores, or, you know, continuing to do that, where you're able to kind of, you know, continue that journey with customers through different ways. But I think it's a lot to do with A, the data layer, which is kind of the fundamental aspect, and then B is like, how do you really activate that across, and this whole goal of, you know, what we call as hyper personalization, which is super can be easily said than done, but just getting that next best action is kind of tough in the real world, and that's involved a lot of instrumentation all the way to a lot of legacy system changes, which can be daunting at times, especially for legacy retailers who have a lot of store footprint with old POS and other systems, you know, which need modernization.
Yeah. So I can add a couple of things if you want. First of all, you know, we need to change maybe our approach. As I told you, omnichannel is good, but we need to have a unified commerce platform. And we were, you know, having a role, and we still have a role, digital marketing. But I think it doesn't make sense anymore. We just need to have marketing because there is not an online offline world anymore. We were talking about phygital. It's also maybe it will be also yesterday. So, you know, this transition requires a couple of, you know, improvements. First of all, we need to look at the technology, you know, stack. So we need to unify the technology stacks by streamlining technology to integrate online and offline services. And if you look at, there is a recent study of Bain, you know, for the last 3 quarters of retailer CIOs, they are saying that rationalizing their tech stack was the top priority for them. So we see that the companies are already doing that. And also unifying data platforms, and especially customer data is important. So we already talked about customer data platforms, but also product is important. We need to marry. So we need to, you know, marry customer insights and product insights together. Single view of the customer, inventory visibility, the right information for sensitive customers about the ingredients and everything they need to know about the product to make an immediate decision. And also another thing is the corporate structures, their business processes. If there are different channel organizations in the retailers or FMCG companies, they need to maybe look at that. So they need to unify by putting customers in the center. So there shouldn't be channel management anymore. And of course, personalization, using the data, understanding customers with AI, and providing everything, on a unified marketing platform. So monitoring, everywhere where customers are, and supporting these with a CDP platform, and having sensitive on privacy. Yeah, this would help us creating loyalty, with consistent care.
I think that my two colleagues have said it perfectly. I think the most important thing for me is to remember that not every customer is at the same place on this journey. And so it does mean that the retailer needs to offer all of the above, not transition from A to B. They'll have to continue to offer A even when they transition to B, because just the nature of the ever-changing consumer.
Yeah, no, those are really great points, and it's easier said than done, right? Because there is all this data and there's all this technology, but then there is a lot of it too, right? So it's how do you kind of bring everything together? And I think one of the interesting points that all of you have raised is putting the customer at the center, right? Making it about the customer and not about the product or not about the revenue, because everything will flow from there. It's more about keeping the customer at the center. Nishad, I'm given your background, I was curious, and you mentioned the experience with the coupons. How have you seen media as a tool by retailers to kind of drive some of these changes that are happening, or to benefit from them?
So in several ways. So I think there's a couple of thoughts here. So first, I think it's important to separate retail media from retail advertising. Both are intended to promote the retailer. The second, retail media, is letting someone else pay for it, and sort of promoting the retailer through the promotion of the products that retailer sells. And so clearly retail media is more interesting to a retailer than having to pay themselves to advertise, because somebody else can foot the bill. But more importantly, retail media, media, let's just start with media. Media has always been about the intersection of customer understanding and intent. If I know who you are and you raise your hand and say you need something, those two together are sort of the perfect form of media. And you check both of those boxes with retail media. I know who you are through my historical purchase, knowledge of you. And you've arrived on my website and you've searched for something on my website. So what advertiser wouldn't want to advertise to you in that exact moment? It is probably the definition of the perfect ad unit, because it combines this idea of knowing the customer and them raising their hand. Again, I go back to what I said earlier. When someone walked up to the counter 100 years ago and said, I need to buy toothpaste, wouldn't P&G have paid infinite amount of money for Crest to be the thing that popped into the shop owner's mind first at that particular request? That's effectively what's happening with retail media. So that's sort of the first part of it. I think the second part of it is consumers are demanding more efficiency and lower pricing. And we can argue all sorts of reasons for that. Even pre the last couple of years where inflation has become the dominant topic, Amazon was great at figuring out how to lower cost for everybody. In general, retailers, Walmart started this trend, but retailers succeed when they can, at scale, bring efficiency and therefore lower cost to customers. What hasn't necessarily been looked at as much, and it's what retail media represents, is are there other revenue streams that enable you to subsidize the price of your retail business? And Amazon did this spectacularly with things like AWS, Amazon Ads. Those two businesses combined are nearing $100 billion of revenue and probably 40-50 billion of profit, which is more than all of Amazon reports as a company, which means they're not a retailer, at least not a profitable one, they're in some other business and they just happen to have a retail business that sits on the side and loses money every year. If you're another retailer that has to compete with Amazon, you've also got to underprice your products. And the only way you can do that is to find alternative revenue streams. Media is a perfect example of that. The data that you collect out of physically running and operating a store enables you to actually monetize that data through the form of media and other things. And it kind of becomes a necessity, or else you lose on price. And if you lose on price, you might as well go out of business.
That's definitely true. Vivek, will you have thoughts on this?
Absolutely. I think, I think at the heart of it, I think a lot of retailers are definitely are struggling in terms of maintaining their or bringing, because of the we all know about the retail apocalypse. A lot of good players went out of business for the same reason that they were not kind of nimble or agile enough to kind of adapt very quickly towards this new way where digital is at the center of your business, not a channel really. And I think a lot of it is to do with the efficiencies. So for example, for some of the clients I worked with, the problem statement was, hey, how can we really leverage our stores as our fulfillment centers? Because the stores are not set up like that. But if you really have to, look at, same day deliveries, 2-hour deliveries, 4-hour deliveries, how do you really connect your stores and make them as what's the role of the store really in your new context? And that has huge implications around, how would you really, implement some of those things, because your stores are not set up for being fulfillment centers really. And a lot of players have done it very successfully. For example, Target has really been extremely successful, where almost 80 to 90% of their e-com business, gets fulfilled from stores, which really gives them the edge and can have the competitive advantage, with some of the likes of Amazon and others. So I think some of that, then the cost of fulfillment, is a big issue with a lot of retailers, because intuitively, e-commerce should be more profitable, but it is less profitable because it does take away the cost of free shipping, free the whole shipping and fulfillment cost becomes a pretty big element of the value chain. So there are different ways in which you could use data, LP, and optimization techniques to kind of do optimization of that whole fulfillment process, especially when you're looking at distributed order order fulfillment across your different channels. Obviously, pricing strategies, dynamic pricing strategies, are important, where a lot of focus is going there, especially even moving to omni-channel pricing, where your digital and the store pricing are actually optimized through a single source of truth, as opposed to kind of being done differently at different places. So I think a lot of these levers across the value chain, as Nisha rightly put it, right, in terms of trying to be more profitable, and managing your where the biggest costs are, that involves a huge amount of modernization of your legacy solutions. And one of the reasons why they've been challenges is because it is not easy to overnight change the backbone that you've been operating on. These are very, very old legacy solutions. For example, supply chain, right? The classic problem of trying to reduce inventory lies in the global visibility of inventory across all the partners in the supply chain, which means you don't only have to have understanding of where your inventory is, but even where, what's the in-transit inventory, what's my partner's inventory, what's my vendor managed inventory, all of that into a global solution is itself a very, big ask. But once you do that, then obviously there is a lot of, advantages that you gain and a lot of agility that you create in this process, which creates that competitive advantage. Same thing from returns, just processing returns from anywhere. You can sell anywhere, return anywhere. It itself is a very big concept, not easily followed, very difficult to follow. How can you make the returns process prevent returns, then pre-predict, because a lot of cost, because the cost of reverse logistics is maybe 4 times the cost of forward logistics, right? So you have to really look at how do you manage that part of the business. So I think for the as you break each of these down into different aspects of the value chain, I think a lot of the different strategies to be applied to be able to kind of be competitive in this process as far as cost management is concerned, and obviously driving more value from your marketing investments.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I want to add a couple of things, especially the thing Vivek mentioned about inventory management. I think another thing that retailers need to unify is the business processes. So in many retail organizations, we see that inventory management, supply chain, and CRM and marketing, they are acting independently. But let me give an example. One of our customers, they are a huge discount retail chain and Zobeis, we cover their marketing part, but also touching their inventory management. And they had an issue with, for instance, fresh, produce and items, for instance, chickens. Then when they realize that if they have let's say 4 days of inventory to be expired, okay, in many stores, or then if they see that they have more than 10 days, in inventory, okay, they need to finish that stocks in 4 days. Then there is a listening system, listening all the inventories, monitoring activities, and making a price recommendation, reduction recommendation, and selecting the target audience and running that campaigns to finish, these 10-day stocks in 4 days. So that's actually is something needs to be alignment of different disciplines in a company. So that's why I think we need to marry those systems. This is critical. Another thing I can add is, stores, were maybe like black box, but when we see that, and this digitizations is not easy, so it requires still some significant investments. But when we see, the stores, that our retailers implement these digitizations in their stores and start to monitor these in-store traffics, they see significant improvements in their, space management, planograms management. This is what I can add.
They're really great points. And just a quick note to the attendees who are listening in, feel free to post any questions in the chat and I'll relay them to the panelists. We have about 8 minutes left. Vivek, I wanted to, given your experience in the CX space, I just wanted to get some insight from you in terms of what kind of frictions do you see retailers facing when they're leveraging technology for these, for a bit more human-centric customer experience, right? Because I think part of, as Nishad was saying, the part of the evolution of the retail store is there was a huge human part to it, and technology is kind of in some ways replacing it, but can't replace it completely. So how can retailers use these technologies to, provide a much better human-centric experience?
Yeah, I think there is a immense potential at every step, right? If I was to break down the value kind of what creates value, it would be all the way from figuring out your CX strategy, given, as somebody put it earlier, that, customers are going to pay higher for a higher frictionless experience. And then, like doing your journey design across all your key personas, setting up your platforms, which actually enable those journeys, across the board. And that is all the way from the entire life cycle, from awareness till advocacy, from standpoint. I think one important part where sometimes I feel it gets a bit missed out is that just setting up good platforms end to end does not always guarantee strong human-centric experiences, because human-centric experiences are also created at every touch point of the customer with the organization, right? So, for example, something like customer service, or something like billing, or something like returns, or something like like many of these, like even like, for example, in B2B scenarios, how quickly can you get the right quote to your customers, right? So these are areas which require the enterprise to be transformed in those relevant areas. We call that as front office transformation. So obviously, and technology plays a lot of, big part in that. And then the largest area is where, you have to really use the data to the right level in terms of, knowing who your customers are, and then leveraging that to kind of, create those aha moments of personalization across the journey, which I think is looks to be the most intuitive, but it's the most challenging across, given how siloed data is, how different departments look at it. And again, trying to really democratize data across the organization is super critical. Like in many cases I've seen where you would need the product 360, the order 360, and the customer 360 to kind of like be available to everybody in the organization, all the way from your marketer to your merchandiser to your supply chain person, because they can truly democratize use of AI and then take decisions on that. But that's a very but there's a lot of friction there because you have to think about how do you truly democratize AI in the organization, and now with Gen AI and other areas. But just building that backbone itself is challenging. I think the technology can play a tremendous role in unifying solutions. A lot of our retailers also grow through acquisitions. So there are practical challenges when you have retailers who have acquired newer brands. How do they develop that level of rationalization of their IT landscape to really drive those end-to-end experiences and also drive efficiencies in the process. So there's a huge element of modernization of legacy solutions, all the way from and then there is a use of AI in every aspect of what we do. So even for that matter, customers, like all the way from customer service till how do you offer the right products to the right customers, that the right level of recommendations, the pricing aspect. So I think data plays a massive role in this whole thing. And the last area I would say is, one more area is just the reimagination of experience, right? So for example, and there've been several attempts at that. So a couple of years back we had Metaverse come in, and there was a lot of hype in that, but then obviously it was probably not ready yet for primary use. But then a lot of like for example, a lot of retailers today, because they can't afford stores in every channel of the geographies, they will probably have the ability to kind of virtually spin up virtual stores on the fly, based on catchment areas, based on the interest in the products, or based on promotions, which create physical like experiences in digital. And there are technologies to do that using augmented reality or virtual realities or other ways, like digital twins. So for example, in like a lot of areas, you would look at digital twins to be kind of reimagining the way you interact with the customer traditionally. So like the whole area of immersive technologies, like conversational UI is a great example, where you are not kind of moving away to more conversational UIs with your customers, as opposed to the traditional, like going to the web and interacting with you as a thing. Mobile is a big area, and obviously, while it's been there for many years, like still I think a lot of the organizations are looking at how can I really have strong, performant, very compelling native experiences which help me that advantage of the mobile channel with, because a lot of our traffic is shifting to mobile today. Almost 70% of traffic for many retailers is a mobile first channel. So I think a lot of this is all the way rooted with technology in the across. Obviously data gets a lot more airtime nowadays, and obviously rightfully so, but at the same time there is a lot of areas when you start breaking up, like all the way from merchandising to pricing to promotions to kind of fulfillment and e-commerce and so on and so forth, which really have a lot of things like underlying it is technology. The only last point I would say is that I believe technology is evolving faster than retailers can adopt it in many cases. Mm-hmm. So the pace of adoption is slower than, and that is natural. It is it is human, and it requires change. It requires that level of. So I think that's again the perfect dichotomy where it's not always possible for every single new innovation to be adopted that easily. So obviously there is a continuum there as well, right? So there are some laggards, there's some leaders, and that creates that level of diversity.
I think maybe just one other thing I would add on. I think a retailer needs to appreciate where they want to differentiate and where they are open to commodity. So everyone might argue that the physical process of checking out, like literally the scanner software, commoditize that. Everybody kind of the same thing, just do it the same way. That's a perfect place for technology to step in. But assortment, right? Choosing which products you put in your physical store. Costco would argue that assortment is their competitive differentiation. They have 3,000 UPCs, in a store footprint that is 2 to 10 times larger than other stores that'll have 100,000 UPCs. The argument there is it's much simpler for the consumer. If I want salted cashew nuts, I don't choose between the whole or the half, the 8-ounce or the 16-ounce, the 3-pack or the 12-pack. I just get the 3-pound jug of salted cashew nuts, and that's it. It's simpler on the supply chain. It's simpler for the consumer to make a choice as to whether they want that product or not. And Costco is very protective about not sharing what their assortment looks like for exactly that reason. And that's a situation where you wouldn't necessarily want to fully apply technology to that problem, because that is something that you don't want to be learned by a system and then applied to all of your competitors.
Yeah, I think we have limited time. I just want to add one thing. If we talk about frictionless, always we think about AI and automation, but I think still store associates, they are very important for customers, and we can provide this frictionless with them, with their support, and we need to empower them. And when I was in NRF, I saw that this was the one of the top things that Walmart has been making investment in that area to empower their store associates. Yeah, we need to focus also that area.
Great points, and we are right on time. So I'll thank all of you for taking your time to it's we can go on. It's such an interesting topic, and you guys have so much insight. I can keep listening to you for hours. And also thanks to all the attendees who are who've been listening in. I'll just I'll just stop the live stream. And so folks who are attending, you can go to the next session, and I'll stop the live stream here.